guys, welcome back to Unclipped. I am your host, Imani Brown, aka the Spincess, and I'm so happy that you're here. So, today's episode, I got two pretty heavy episodes back to back, but today is World Mental Health Day. And because in my previous episode, I sort of alluded to the fact that I've struggled with some mental health issues, I thought that this episode was appropriate to kind of share my story with mental illness. My goal, my hope with this episode is that we will become more comfortable with speaking about mental health and mental illness, because as much as we'd like to say that we have destigmatized mental illness, there are certain diagnoses that are more acceptable than others in our society. So I hope that this gets the conversation going. My second hope with this episode is that if you haven't struggled with your mental health in moderate to severe way, that this will give you a little bit more insight on what it's like for somebody who has struggled with pretty severe manifestations of mental illness. And then my third sort of hope for this episode is that if anybody is struggling, that they just know that they're not alone in that fight, and that there are other people who feel that way, and there is hope to get better. So I just want to say, as far as what I struggle with, I have a laundry list of diagnoses, some more severe than others, but each of them sort of manifests in a small way in my everyday life. I have learned good coping skills, and I have also come a long way, because a lot of these things used to impact me very severely, and I was not able to function at the capacity that I am right now. So the point that I am right now, I'm thankful for, but I know I have a long way to go still. Also, how about we do one thing, right? If there's one thing that we do following this episode, is we stop labeling ourselves as OCD because we like things neat or clean. Please stop doing that. Nothing grinds my gears more than when I'm having a conversation or overheard a conversation and someone's like, yeah, I like my stuff organized. I'm so OCD about it. First of all, that doesn't even make fucking sense. You're so obsessive compulsive disorder about it. Okay. Second of all, if you do not have OCD, I promise you, you don't know what it's like to struggle with it. It's not that you want things neat and clean all the time. It is a series of obsessions and compulsions, most of which do not make sense. They don't make logical sense. So don't label yourself like that anymore. Stop saying you're so OCD for liking things organized. You just like things clean and organized. Thank you. So, if you watched or listened to my previous episode, you know that I struggled with my mental health throughout the abusive relationship that I was in. I didn't really go into detail about what happened, so I want to use this time to go into detail. But for the sake of this episode, I'm going to say that my big mental health struggles started in 2017 in the midst of that relationship I was in. Now, in hindsight, I can notice things about myself throughout my childhood and sort of beyond that alluded to me possibly having some issues beforehand. But I definitely think that the relationship I was in and the amount of trauma that I endured, the excessive pressure, and lack of self-care, heavily contributed to the sort of scale that my mental breakdown was on. I mean, I was a non-functional human at that point. So I want to kind of clarify that. I think that I had some issues beforehand, but I was high functioning. So they didn't present themselves in like severe ways where it was impacting my everyday life. But when my brain decided it was time for me to protect myself, it definitely shut down. As I said in the previous episode, there are parts of my life, especially kind of around the time I'm going to talk about, that have large chunks missing. There are parts where I can't even remember like that things happened at all. But there are also parts where I remember very vividly, almost as if like I am like in that moment right there, right now. And one event that I remember very vividly was my first panic attack. Well, now I know it as my first panic attack, but then I did not know it was a panic attack. Okay, so it was April 2017, and I was laying on my couch, scrolling through my phone, and all of a sudden I started to get like tunnel vision, like the sides of my vision started to go black, and like it was tunnel vision, and I never had that happen to me before. And so I panicked and I like jumped up off the couch. And when I jumped up off the couch, the room started spinning. And what I mean by spinning is like a severity that I had never experienced prior to that and never really experienced after that. The room was like spinning. And so as I tried to walk to the bathroom, I was stumbling and bumping into things. I was falling, and I began to get very scared. So as I'm stumbling and falling to the bathroom, my dumbass ex is like, "What's wrong with you? What the fuck are you doing?" Like, obviously I'm having a crisis right now, right? Like, I'm not doing this on purpose. But I go to the bathroom and I like splash water on my face. That helps a little bit. So I decide I was going to get in the shower. So I ran the shower and I ran a cold shower. And at first I couldn't like stand up without falling. So I sat on the floor of the shower. But eventually I was able to stand up and feel a little bit better. So at that point, I'm kind of confused. I'm relieved that the event seems to be over, but I'm confused as to what just happened to me. I thought possibly that I could be dehydrated because I was not taking care of myself at all at that point. I was not sleeping more than 4 hours a night. I was not eating things that were good for my body. If I really ate at all, and I was not drinking water, like I was not taking in any adequate amount of liquids at all, like not even soda or anything. I was not hydrated. So I decided I was going to go to the kitchen and take the gallon of water out of the fridge and chug the gallon of water. Now, I do not suggest that you chug a gallon of water because, number one, you could die. I'm glad I'm still here to tell this story, but now that I think about it, I'm like, holy shit, I could have died. Second of all, it does not hydrate you if you chug a gallon of water. You're literally just going to piss it out if you don't pass away. So if you feel like you're dehydrated, do not chug a gallon of water. Anyways, I chugged this gallon of water and I'm like, oh, I must be dehydrated. Like, okay. So I feel a little better. I go to sit back down I changed my clothes and then I go to sit back down on the couch because I entered the shower with my clothes on. That's how like scared and disoriented I was. So I sit back down on the couch and guess what happens? It happens again. Room starts spinning. And at this point, I feel like I can't breathe. Like my chest muscles got tight and I couldn't get a good deep breath in. So I run to the door. Mind you, changing my clothes meant I had on a sweatshirt and underwear. I ran to the door and it was like a really crisp like evening. I remember it was pretty cold. So when I opened the door, like the shock of the cold air sort of like, restarted my body again and my brain again. And I felt a little better after that. So again, my ex is like yelling at me, cursing at me, whatever. And I feel a little bit better for a small amount of time and then it happens again. So at that point, I am like, something is wrong and I need to get to the hospital. So I asked my ex to take me to the hospital and he protests that. He says, I don't need to go. Again, I didn't have a license or a car. So I was completely dependent on my abuser to transport me from point A to point B. So I'm begging him. I'm like, please take me to the hospital. Something's wrong. Like, I feel like I'm going to die. And at this point, I'm like convinced I'm having a heart attack, right? So he says no again. So I decide I have to call 911. I can't just die in this house here. I have to get help. So I call 911. The freaking operator was rude as hell. I probably was not helping, but they were rude. And they dispatch some paramedics, and they get to my house. And then of course, when the paramedics get there, he lies and says that he offered to take me, but I said I wanted to go by ambulance. Bitch, I had out-of-state insurance. I did not want to go by an ambulance. That was like a $5,000 ride to the hospital. I surely did not want to go that way. Anyways, so they load me up in the back of the rig. And they're so fucking rude to me. Like throughout this, my mental health journey, at my lowest points, I met some of the nastiest people I've ever met in my life. And it really hurts me because while like my feelings aren't hurt, I feel for the person I was before, because surely I was hurt then, and I feel for the people that they possibly failed by not doing their due diligence with just treating people like humans. So there were two paramedics in the back, and they treated me like shit. They took my blood sugar, took my blood pressure, everything was fine. And then they proceeded to kind of badger me with the, how do I say this? They had already assumed they knew what was happening. At this point, I look insane. My hair's like matted to my head, because if you have curly or kinky hair, you know that you cannot just go get it wet and not brush it. So when I got in that cold shower, I didn't brush my hair after, and I like had laid down on the couch again and kind of rolled around or whatever, and so my hair was literally matted to my head. I looked insane. They're asking me like, oh, do you drink? And I'm very much a rule follower, so I was only 20 at the time, so I hadn't drank, and so I told them no. They didn't believe me, like they're rolling their eyes and stuff. And then and then they asked me have I done any drugs? And I'm like, no, I have never done drugs in my life. And then they go like I'm a stupid idiot or something. They're like, marijuana is a drug. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. I told you I didn't do any drugs. So I'm getting kind of angry now because they're pretty much accusing me of, I think, having an adverse reaction to illicit substances. So they were no help. We get to the hospital, talk to the triage nurse. She's really nice, tells me to wait in the waiting room. I'm waiting there by myself. I'm alone at the worst part of my life. And I remember I felt that heavy feeling of being alone, because not only was I alone sort of mentally, I was the only one knowing how I felt. I was physically alone. And that's a tough feeling, especially when you don't know what's happening to you. So they get me a room, and they run an EKG. Obviously that's normal because I wasn't having a heart attack. The nurse comes in a few times, and of course they ask me again about drugs. I tell them I have never done drugs. But to their defense, when I took my urine test, my urine was extremely dilute. Why? Because I drank a gallon of water. So that didn't help my case. It looked like I was trying to flush out drugs, but I was just trying to feel better. So, of course, at the hospital, they assumed that I had done some sort of drugs because my urine was literally clear. Like, it was clear, guys. Nonetheless, the nurse was very nice to me. She wasn't nasty like how the paramedics were. So, they come in and tell me everything came back normal. And they let me kind of rest up for a few hours. And right before shift change at I think it was about 6 a.m., they discharged me. On my discharge papers, I was diagnosed with unexplained dizziness. That was the only thing that was on my paper. They gave me no referral to anyone. They gave me no points of contact. They gave me no help. So they told me if I felt that way again to come back to the ED. So I ordered an Uber. I remember I had 5% charge left on my phone. So I ordered an Uber from the hospital. And I went home, and my ex was sleeping, literally sleeping like a baby when I got home, was not worried in this life. I bet he hoped that I died. But I persist out of spite always. But yeah, he was in bed. I climbed over him. He still hadn't woken up when I climbed over him, because I was extremely exhausted. So now that I know those were panic attacks, if you haven't had a panic attack before, it is the most mentally and physically exhausting thing that probably has happened to me. I mean, I could have conserved all of my energy for the day. I could have eaten well and, optimized every energy source. But if I were to have a panic attack, I would be physically exhausted and need to go to sleep after that. So, I rested a little bit, and I hadn't told any of my family. I did not call my mom because I didn't want her to worry. I mean, we're 700 miles away from each other, and she already worried about me from the moment that she dropped me off on that college campus. So I didn't want to make her worry even further because she couldn't do anything about it realistically. So I skipped my classes for that day, and I just chilled for the rest of the day. I felt fine. So I'm like, oh, that had to be like a one-off episode. But then nightfall came again, and it happened to me again. And this time, I was really worried that something bad was going to happen to me. So I decided it was time that I kind of let my mom know. So I called her like in the middle of me having this crisis, and I was also arguing with my ex because he wouldn't take me to the hospital. Again, we're having this argument. And I vividly remember my mom saying, Imani, hand him the phone. So I handed him the phone, and I heard her say, if you don't take her to the hospital, you are going to regret it. I don't know what she meant by that, but I believe her. And he believed her because he took me to the hospital, right? So we get to the hospital. I explain to them what's happening. And at this point, I'm having chest pain, and like my arms feel kind of numb. And so, oh my gosh, then I'm like, I'm definitely having a heart attack. Oh my gosh, right? I was not having a heart attack again. Little side note again, if you suffer from panic attacks, and you are having chest pain, you're probably not having a heart attack if you're young and healthy. It's probably that you were clenching your muscles so tightly that your chest muscles are like sore. That's exactly what was happening to me. But I was like, oh my gosh, chest pain, heart attack. So they get me a room, and Doofus comes with me in the room. The door is cracked like half open. And I remember we were literally arguing in that room. He was actually verbally abusing me in that room. I was directly across from the nurse's station, and they could hear what was going on, and nobody stepped in. When they ask you that questionnaire, like when you come to the hospital with someone and they like separate you and they're like, do you feel safe in your house? Blah, blah, blah. That never got asked to me. I never got separated from him to answer any questions. He sat there the whole time. And when people stepped out of the room, he verbally abused me. And that was another way that I think I was failed by the system. Somebody should have stepped in. Somebody should have asked those questions. I have a feeling that's part of protocol to ask those questions. But nonetheless, I was not asked those questions. And I was just praying that was kind of going to be like my break out of the relationship, that somebody was going to hear what he was saying to me and intervene, but it was not. So he's verbally abusing me. And then the nurse comes back in the room, and they give me what I now know is Valium. So at this point, they know, I think they know, actually I know that they know that I was having panic attacks, that I was suffering from anxiety. And like I said, I had not been diagnosed with anything ever previously. There's no history of mental illness in myself or in any of my close family members that I noted. So I didn't know what was happening to me. And I think anybody with 3 brain cells would know now that I was having a panic attack. It was literally like classic textbook panic attack symptoms. And they gave me something that is used to treat panic attacks, and didn't really tell me what was going on. So they gave me the Valium. The nurse is so sweet, and she's telling me, like, this will help you relax a little bit. Just try to get some rest. So I get some rest as much as I can with this motherfucker on the side of me, like, being insane. So I proceed to have multiple panic attacks still after that, and the doctor comes in. He's kind of talking to me. I don't really remember what that conversation consisted of, but it was nothing productive, and eventually they do release me once again with there's no diagnosis on that what do you call that, discharge paperwork. So I'm still confused. I'm left wondering. I then go home to get belittled, and it was explained to me by my doofus ex that I wasted everybody's time, I wasted resources because nothing's wrong with me. Okay, cool. So the day goes by, we're fine again, and then nightfall. It happens once again. So my ex drives me to the hospital, and he drops me off at the front of the ED, and he leaves to go home. At this point, they didn't even put me in a room. They put me in like a room by myself. They put me in one of those rooms where, like, there's just like a bunch of people and curtains, and like some tech sitting there watching us, I guess. I don't know. I was so exhausted from having panic attacks that I was like falling asleep, but then I would jump up out of my sleep because my heart was racing. And again, now looking back, I'm sure that to somebody working at the hospital, that could have possibly looked like I was on drugs. But if we take 3 days worth of drug tests, right, and they're all clean, wouldn't you deduce from that I'm not on drugs? Jesus Christ. So, I feel like I'm still being treated like they think I'm on drugs. So this part I vividly remember. This PA comes up to me, and she sits in the chair across from me in an effort to, I think, try to have some good bedside manner, but it pissed me off, because if there's one thing about me, it's not that I don't care about bedside manner. I think that bedside manner goes very far, but personally, if you have good bedside manner and shitty medical professional skills otherwise, I don't really care what you say to me. You could quite literally drop kick me, but if you figure out what's wrong with me, I'm fine. I will be happy. So her sitting in front of me, putting her hand on my leg and telling me that it's gonna be okay, pissed me off. She said to me verbatim, "You're going to get through this." And I remember looking her in her eyes and telling her, I don't know what I'm getting through. And I left that night without a diagnosis. I'm not sure how any of the sort of advanced providers in my situation can sleep at night. Like I said, textbook anxiety panic attacks. And the fact that I never got a referral to psych, never got a referral anywhere, they just told me to come back if it happened again. I had no guidance, I had no diagnosis, and they just let me go. The fact that happened to me is bad medicine. And I stand 10 toes down on that. Every professional that was in charge of my care failed me, and it makes me think about how many other people they failed, and those people ultimately paid the ultimate price and lost their battle because they weren't getting the help that they needed. In every situation that I've been through, I consider myself extremely lucky, extremely blessed, extremely privileged that I can talk about. Jesus Christ, I was not going to cry. Gosh, I'm just really hurt for the person that I was, and I'm hurt for every other person before me and after me that waited alone in that ED, and didn't get the answers that they deserved, didn't get the easy answers. And that's my thing. I think I probably had the easiest diagnosis in the place, but they still couldn't give me answers. So yeah, I hold a lot of resentment for all of those medical providers, for the system that allowed them to be that way. And I hope that when I get to the point to providing care of that level to people, that that I'm not those people who took care of me. All right, so at this point, I feel even more alone. I'm left confused, and I'm left physically and mentally exhausted. I had some serious derealization at that point. I can remember like walking and then like watching people pass me and feeling like everyone else sort of existed in this world, and like not that I didn't exist, I can't really explain it, but it didn't feel like I was a part of this world. So that was isolating as well. I, on my own, made an appointment with University Health Services. It's a clinic, doctor's office, sort of set up like a primary care office / urgent care for students. And the level of care they provide to the students is excellent. To me, the providers that were there when I was there, at least, are good examples of what I feel that high-level medical providers should be. So I get an appointment, luckily, for the next day, and I'm still convinced that it's something medical. Like it hasn't even crossed my mind that it's something mental, because like I said, I had no history of that, and I didn't know that it could sort of manifest in the way that it did. So the provider I saw was like my angel. I really consider her my angel. I remember when I graduated from college, I emailed her and I told, oh my God, why am I fucking crying? I emailed her and I told her that she saved my life and she's the reason why I graduated college. She's the reason why I sort of like fought through what I was going through, because she saw me and she wanted to help me. So, oh my God, stop crying, girl. You gotta stop. I'm back with the tissue. So here I am crying about me telling her what she did for me. I don't even know what she did. When she came into the room, we sort of went over my symptoms. We went over sort of how the past couple days had played out for me. And within minutes, she looked at me and she said, I think you have anxiety. I think what you were experiencing were panic attacks. And that was sort of the breakthrough moment in my life. I mean, light bulb went off. And like I said, that was the first time in that situation that I felt seen. The first time I felt like I didn't have to go through it by myself. She told me, we're gonna get through this. She said, we are gonna get through this. And surely her choice of words were intentional. And she knew that's what I needed. So, she tells me that she thinks it's anxiety and I'm having panic attacks. She reruns some tests just so that they have them there and everything sort of checks out the same. She tells me that she's going to prescribe me Zoloft, but the Zoloft will not work for 2 months. So I sort of have to be in this limbo for 2 months, which scared me. I'm a big researcher, right? Like anytime somebody tells me something, I'm looking it up and I'm probably going to look it up for at least an hour. and find out every piece of information that is known to man about that thing. So I leave the appointment and I researched Zoloft. I kind of, and I do this often too, I was like a WebMD too. I'm not anymore, kind of. But I kind of got disheartened because at that point it was 2017, and like that, you know how you can do like a cheek swab DNA test thing to see what psychiatric meds sort of like would help someone, I guess, with your DNA profile. That was not readily available at that point. So we were at a trial and error point in society. So I was really scared that I was going to, fight through this for 2 months, and then Zoloft wasn't going to be the right thing for me, because the risk that you take is not only no improvement, the risk that you take with psychiatric medication is unfortunately that you might get worse. So that was scary for me. I called my mom and told her what the plan was, and then she consulted with my family therapist back home, and she sort of was on the same page as me. She told me that I probably should start it, but she, warned me that things could get worse, and if they did, to let somebody know. So I still hadn't started it. I was really scared. But the APRN that prescribed me the Zoloft in UK, like primary care student health, she also told me that I should make an appointment with UK student behavioral health. Again, like angels, they're godsends. I mean, they saw me for a person again. I felt like a human for the first time in a long time. So I meet another APRN who specializes in psychiatric medicine, and she agrees with the approach of the Zoloft. It is a very old medicine. So we know that it works in a high percentage of the population. But I told her that I was still having panic attacks, obviously, right? Because nothing was handling my panic. And so we kind of go into what my panic attacks look like. And it's not funny. It's kind of funny, like not haha now, but it was eye-opening then. She asked me what the duration of my panic attacks were. And I was like, oh, they're all day. And then she kind of looks at me really confused and she goes, no, panic attacks usually last between like 1 and 3 minutes. And we deduced from that I was having thousands of panic attacks back to back to back all day. And that is why I was exhausted. So I told her that I trusted her to treat me with the right things. But the one stipulation that I had was that I did not want to be on a narcotic. I don't really have a family history of drug use or abuse, but if I don't have to be on a narcotic, I don't want to be on a narcotic. I mean, I think that sort of speaks for itself. If there's a way for me not to take a hard medicine, I don't want to. So she put me on hydroxyzine. Hydroxyzine is my queen, my everything. It's an antihistamine. So it's in and out of your system, and it helps with allergies, bug bites, allergic reactions. So I guess I discovered that it also helped with panic, and so she prescribed me that. So we schedule an appointment a week from that day so she can sort of see how I was doing. And from that meeting, I was made to think about what my future sort of held and how I had to move forward from here. I tried to attend class again. I tried to do my homework, and it was not happening. I couldn't be in a space with a lot of people without having a panic attack. My panic manifested heavily socially. It was bad. I mean, like little chatter and stuff would cause me to have a panic attack. Like if a bunch of people were like talking and it was like, I'm going off. Being in an enclosed space caused me to have a panic attack. I'd be like, I have to get out of here. So even just like looking at the computer screen and like reading a homework assignment, I had a panic attack. Literally was triggered by everything. So I decided it was my best interest if I explored medically withdrawing from school. And that was a difficult decision, guys. If there's anything that has been a constant in my life, anything that I've always been good at, anything that was my source of enjoyment, honestly, it was school. And to me, it really didn't matter if I was sort of losing everything else around me, losing myself. The fact that I was losing school, like, really threw me for a loop. And at that point, I couldn't see a return back to normal. I had just decided that this was my new normal, and I didn't know how I was going to move on. I didn't know how I was going to go on. Funny enough, when you have to medically withdraw from at least my university, you are required to meet in person each department head and discuss why you're medically withdrawing. So yeah, I kind of thought that was weird, because if I'm having a medical crisis, why would I be having an in-person meeting with you? Nevertheless, I met with them. I think that they could clearly see that I was going through it. I don't think I had brushed my hair, like, literally since I got in the shower that one time, and then I just proceeded to keep, like, not having brushed hair. I probably, like, brushed over the top of it. Like, the inside was definitely not brushed. My face definitely looked tired. I just wore, like, giant sweatshirts and giant sweatpants over and over. I looked like I was going through it. And if you know me and you know how I dressed in college and how I usually dress, like, just on a normal basis, you know that a big sweatshirt and big sweatpants is not my thing. Anyways, yeah. So I was allowed to medically withdraw from school, and I went back to behavioral health to sort of discuss what was going to happen moving forward. I told her that I medically withdrew, and my plans were to go back home to New York so I could try and rehabilitate myself. We decided that I was not mentally stable enough to travel with just the medications I was on then. She didn't think the hydroxyzine was strong enough to keep me from freaking out while traveling by myself. So we decided that the best course of action to get me home and rehabilitated was to put me on a controlled substance, because I needed time to let the Zoloft do its thing and possibly kick in. So I didn't really like pack much stuff, but I went home. I think it wasn't May yet, so this had all happened within, like, kind of a week and a half of each other. And I traveled back to New York City by myself. And that was sort of the beginning of my, like, rebirth period. I remember getting home to my mom and brother, and I know that when they looked at me, they didn't see a person that they knew. I know that they only saw sort of a shell of me, and I can't imagine how heartbreaking that was for them to experience that. But I'm thankful that I had my family. Like I said before, I've been incredibly privileged and lucky, despite me going through all the things I've been through. I've been incredibly lucky to have the support system that I have, because they certainly provide me with the strength that I need to get through all the things that I've been through. So my mom and brother don't know what's going on with me, really, but they are here to help me. So that summer was really rough. I pretty much couldn't spend a waking moment alone. Somebody had to be there with me, or else I would be, like, scared. I don't know. I was just scared. I would have a panic attack if nobody was there with me. I was maxing out on hydroxyzine all day. Again, it's an antihistamine, so, like, no big deal that I was maxing out on it. But I was also taking the Seroquel. I had some, like, physical, like, things with the Seroquel too. I'd get, like, brain zaps and all that stuff. It might have been from the Zoloft. Who knows at this point? But it was rough. I couldn't bathe oddly enough, I couldn't bathe like by being in the bathroom alone. Like if I was showering, my mom had to be in the bathroom with me, because I guess the nature of the shower, like being this small contained space, like threw my brain for a loop. And I multiple times I just like bursted out of the shower and I'm like, I have to get out of here. My mom's throwing on her clothes, I'm putting on my clothes, about to run outside but ass naked pretty much. But we had to get out of the house because my brain told me I had to get out of there. And every single time my mom just went along with me. My mom just did what I asked her to do. She did what she thought she needed to do. And I can imagine what that feels like as a parent, to watch your child go through something like that and sort of be helpless and not know how you can help. Again, like my mom wasn't there. My brother was there, like watching me. I literally had like a little babysitter all the time. I didn't sleep because I was having panic attacks. I was always in a state of panic. I had clammy hands, clammy feet, always. Most of that summer, I slept in the bed with my mom, and I remember sort of a period in time where I did not sleep for 72 hours straight. 72 hours. Like, that is so insane. I was just so on edge that I could not sleep. You know, some nights were better than others, but they were all rough. And my comfort show was Law and Order. My mom would just turn that on, and we would watch like Law and Order marathons, because that helped me forget about the fact that I was panicking, thus reducing the panic attacks. So I kind of look at that time in my life as a time that was special because I got to bond with my family, but completely heartbreaking because I know they felt helpless, and I know I put them through a lot. Well, rather, I'm not going to say I put them through a lot, but dealing with the things that I had to deal with, and them being the family members that they are, they definitely went through a lot that summer as well. I'm going to say I wasn't getting better. One particular instance where I had a panic attack, I had to get out of the house. You know, I've got to get out of here. Me and my mom would sometimes walk all the way from like uptown Harlem to the very end, the very tippy bottom of Manhattan. Those were the only ways that I really could sleep at night, is when I exhausted myself physically so much that I had to sleep. So we took a lot of walks that summer. We drank a lot of water because it was hot, but we did a lot of walking and talking, and we discovered new restaurants, new things that we liked that summer, and it definitely made us closer. If we were already really close, but it definitely created a unique bond that summer. And I'm sure, as you know, as me being an adult at that time, she didn't think she was going to have to take care of her adult child, you know, but that's what ended up happening. Anyways, so one particular instance where I had a panic attack, I told my mom, I have to get out of here. We got out of the house, and I told her, I'm having a heart attack. We have to go to the hospital. I knew logically that I wasn't having a heart attack. She knew I wasn't having a heart attack, but she knew there was nothing else that was going to stop me from feeling this way but taking me to the hospital. So we took a taxi to the hospital, and, you know, they admitted me, well, not admitted me, whatever. I went to the ED. So first, I was 20 at the time, still 20, and so they put me in the adult side of the ED. Oh my gosh, guys, it was pandemonium over there. There were like people screaming, people had their gowns on, and the, you know, the backs, like just a little thing, their asses were out. It was too much. It was, for somebody who had panic disorder, too much, right? So I'm standing up also while they're taking my blood pressure. And so I kind of peek at the screen, right? It was 200 over whatever, but 200. So I was like stroke level, right? And they decided that the chaos that was happening in the adult side probably wasn't something that I should be exposed to. So they kindly walked me over to the ped side of the ED. It was like so chill over there. There were like 5 patients in the ED at that point. The tech took my blood pressure again. It was lower, but it was not low. It was like 190 over something. So again, like stroke level stuff. And then they're like, you need to calm down. Like, you need to relax. Bitch, yeah, no duh. Like, if that was going to do it, then I wouldn't be here. So that pissed me off. Throughout my journey, I've been very pissed off. Not that I'm not already a person that gets pissed off easy, but like, be fucking for real. You need to relax. Okay, thanks for that. I'm having a panic attack. But anyways, they're like looking so concerned, and they're like looking at me like, calm down. I'm telling them I can't. They put me in a like when I was in Kentucky, they put me in like one of those rooms with just curtains separating me and other people. And holy shit, was I overstimulated? The fucking monitors beeping. Then the motherfucker next to me was playing a video game, and it was just so much like ambient noise in the most annoying way that my heart rate wasn't coming down. My blood pressure was not coming down. And there's like 3 doctors in the room at this point. And they're like, you have to calm down. Like, that is dangerous. Like, your heart rate's dangerously high. Your blood pressure's dangerously high. And I explicitly told them that I needed to be in a room by myself because the monitor sounds and the sound, and I said the sound of the motherfucker's game next to me. My mom told me I was being rude, but turn off your game. Put some headphones in. But I told them the sound of the game and everything coupled together was like really irritating me. And so it probably was best if they want to see those stats go down, if they put me in a room alone. They decided against that, and they called Child Life in there. And Child Life proceeded to read me a story. She did her thing though, because the story definitely calmed me down, and I had like a little stress ball, and I remember it was yellow, and I was squeezing it so hard that the yellow came off on my fingertips. But the Child Life lady, like, she was really cool. I was able to take a little nap after that story. But then again, when I woke up, my stats were up high because of all the noise around me. So they then decided to listen to me. Wow. And put me in a room by myself. What happened? My blood pressure went down and my heart rate went down, just as I told them was going to happen. So the nurse comes in my room. She's like, oh, you look so much better. Like, your face was like white. Girl, my face was not white. Be for real. But I know what she meant by that. And I wanted to be like, I told you so. But I told them sort of what I had been told in the past. I told them what medicines I was on, and they did the thing where they separated my mom and I, asked me the home life questions about if I felt safe at home, anything happened to me. At this point, I had not told anyone that I was being abused. Well, aside from my ex's mom, I had not told anyone that I was being abused. So any questions like abuse or anything like that, I said no to. So they consult psych. Psych comes down. I tell them again what medicines I'm on. They're appalled by the Seroquel. I was on Seroquel to like tranquilize me, basically. They're appalled by that. They tell me to get off of it immediately. There's no weaning period. They take me off of Seroquel cold turkey. If you have ever been on Seroquel, or if you know what Seroquel is, that is a terrible idea. Getting off of that cold turkey was terrible. It was horrid. They want to see what my baseline is at this point. They want to see if the Zoloft test started to sort of work. So they also try to get me a referral to like some psychiatric practices. But unfortunately, they inform my mom and I that every waiting list is 6 months long. 6 months. Any affiliation, any person affiliated with them has a 6 month, at the minimum 6 month long waiting list. That was devastating to hear. So I, that day we left, and I went off the Seroquel. I remember feeling like relieved because I felt like we had an action plan, but I also felt really disheartened because it didn't seem like I was ever going to get my life back. And I didn't know what my life was going to look like after that. So, with that 6 month waiting list, we went to my family therapist and we sort of talked about it. And she told us some connections she had in like the heavily psychiatric world. And we said we're going to call around and stuff. But something that stuck with me that she said when I had that appointment, is you have to think about recovery. That's the only way you're going to recover. And I remember like leaving that appointment and I'm like, what does she mean think about recovery? I don't know what recovery looks like. I don't know how I'm going to get through this. I can't see recovery, let alone think about that, what that might look like. I left that appointment angry, confused and upset, because it was like now I felt like I wasn't being heard, because if I was being heard, she would know that I can't think about recovery. So I kind of let that idea simmer like in me. It kept coming up in my head, like recovery. And I then thought to myself, like, if I'm going to give myself a fighting chance, like I've got to do something. I know that, implementing little things won't necessarily fix the situation I'm in. It won't fix, my mental health in its totality, but I've got to do some things to sort of improve the prognosis, for me. And so I said I was going to think about recovery. And for me at that point, thinking about recovery was just thinking of the word. Like I literally just thought of the word recovery. Every morning that I woke up, I thought of that word. I couldn't picture what it looked like, but I knew what the letters were and I knew what it meant generally. I just didn't know what it meant for me. So I started with just thinking about it in sort of an objective way, and just thinking about the word recovery. Like I said before, I'm an avid researcher, so I started to try to look up things that would help me in recovering and help me in my journey. And I came across, the usual things, but things you might not actually think about. Being good to your body, feeding it, because at this point I was not eating. And how can my brain get better if it does not have nutrients? It can't. That's the answer. I began making sure I got enough water, trying my best to make sure I got enough rest. And I would wake up in the morning and go to my yoga mat and do little meditations and little stretches. I couldn't really do meditations for a long period of time. I just did them for 2 or 3 minutes to start out. And then I slowly increased the time that I would do it, obviously. But like I said, I started implementing little things to possibly, I didn't know if it was going to work, right? I had no clue, but I needed to give myself a fighting chance. I also started to read stuff about panic attacks, and I realized that my panic attacks were a result of me panicking about having a panic attack, if that makes sense. So, because when my heart rate went up, I freaked out about having a panic, that was a panic attack. I would have a panic attack. So anytime I, like I said, would increase my heart rate or my respiration rate would go up, I would throw myself into a panic attack pretty much. So my course of action at that point was to try to increase my heart rate without inducing a panic attack. So I had this action plan that I set up for myself, right? So my brother and I got a gym membership, and he's the athletic one, so he didn't need the gym membership, but he went along with me. He's one of my biggest supporters, and I'm incredibly thankful for him. So we got a gym membership, and I started to just walk on the treadmill. And I started at a normal pace that you would walk at, and then I started to pick up the pace. There weren't many times that I could last more than 2 minutes without having a panic attack, and I'd literally jump off the treadmill and run to the bathroom, / locker room. And every time I left the locker room, my brother was waiting outside. He was waiting outside for me, and he knew it was time to leave every single time, without fail. And again, slowly, I was building up my sort of tolerance for my heart rate to go up. I was building up my confidence in the fact that a heart rate spike does not mean you're having a panic attack. It does not mean you're having a heart attack, and you shouldn't freak out about it. So it was a long and rough journey. And throughout me sort of trying to figure things out in the physical realm of that, I guess, my mom and I were my mom, not me. she was just calling a bunch of clinics back and forth to see if they could like squeeze me in if they had cancellations, because we couldn't wait 6 months. I was still struggling really badly. So one day we decided we were going to sit in one of those clinics and wait. And we sat there for hours and hours and hours. I think it was 5 hours we sat there, and finally they had a cancellation. And I was able to see a psychiatrist. And I kind of hated her, really. So she was really like nonchalant. She was like monotonous. And I felt like she was dismissing me. But now I know that while she might have actually been dismissing me, she was actually in reality empowering me. Because I remember telling her, like, I don't think I can go back to school. At this point, it might have been like June or July. And I'm like, I can't go back to school. And she's like, why can't you? And I was like, Miss Girl, what? She's like, you can go back to school. And I'm like, no, I can't. Like, I can't. I still couldn't see myself coming out of that. I still couldn't see myself being a functioning member of society again. Even though I was sort of working towards that, I wasn't optimistic about what was to come. So like that appointment kind of pissed me off. But I still proceeded with everything I was implementing, and I continued to see her and my family therapist, and I continued to try to implement things in my daily life that could improve the results of the other work that I was doing with professionals. So eventually I did get to the point where I could go back to school that next semester. We probably like 2 weeks before the semester started, I decided I was going to go back to school. And it was a decision that my family supported. They told me if I thought I was ready that I should go back. By that point, I had stopped having frequent panic attacks. There were probably a few days between my panic attacks at that point. But every day I thought about that word recovery. I still didn't know what it meant to me. I still couldn't see how I was getting out of it, but I was trying my best. So we decided I was going to return back to school. And that's what I did. And the first semester, it was rough because I was still dealing with like legal stuff from my ex, and like him literally stalking me for a little bit and being insane. But I continued to get better. The Zoloft was sort of a good course of action, I feel, at the time. And then I decided, because I felt better when I raised my heart rate at this point, like I didn't freak out and have a panic attack with a raise in heart rate, that I was going to start like working out. And that's sort of, it's crazy thinking about it, because when I decided that, I tried out CycleBar for the first time. And that's where I'm an instructor now. But it's crazy to think that in 2017, at like my lowest point in life, that's where I found that bike. And the strength that I found on the bike, the strength that the instructors helped me find, is why I feel that I'm an instructor now. I hope that on that bike I'm able to provide what was provided for me, because you never know what people are going through. God damn it. Oh, gosh, stop crying, girl. Dry those tears. Stop crying in the club. Anyways, you never know what people are going through, and you never know who needs your words at that moment, who needs that class. You never know how bad they need it. And from the first day that I took a CycleBar class, I was literally completely hooked. And that space became my space, like exactly what we as instructors say when we sort of give new riders and our existing riders an introduction to classes. The room is yours. And I really felt that, and that went into my little mixing pot of things that I used to help me in my journey and used to improve my mental health. I got a lot of like my nervous jitters out by sort of expending all my energy. So I kind of didn't have like the extra energy to have as much anxiety, and that really worked in my favor. So it's really crazy to look back and think about where I was when I found PsychoBar, when it found me, and how full circle of a moment it is, that I'm hopefully able to provide what was provided to me at the roughest point in my life. Again, healing is not linear, and getting through these things is not going to be just a straight path. But I never returned, and I hope I don't ever return to the place that I was before. Although there were some sort of like, little dips, my recovery continued in an upward trajectory, and I remained intentional, and I still to this day remain intentional about protecting myself and my mental health. And there is nobody, absolutely no one in this world that I will sacrifice my mental health for ever again. If it is something that does not, that is detrimental to my mental health, I will walk away from it. I never want to be the girl that I was. And I'm incredibly lucky to be in this position that I'm in, incredibly lucky to sort of be on the tail end of it. Because I do know that this battle is a lifelong battle. I will never be rid of these things, but I can continue to work towards just getting better every day. And some days that might mean different things on different days. But the point that I want to drive home here, and something I want you to understand, is that even when you can't see a way out, even when you don't know what it looks like to be out of that dark place, you keep going. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And as long as you have the determination and that little bit of fight left in you, you don't need to be able to see that way out to get it. And I believe that through and through, because that's the situation, I've continued to live in. I mean, through my domestic violence journey and my mental health journey, there was no way I saw a way out. Oh, that to me, it was the end. It was always the end. But in spite of that, I kept going for whatever reason. And here I am. There's a way out. I want people to know that despite people maybe dismissing them, professionals dismissing them and what they're feeling, that there's some professional, there's somebody out there that will believe you, will understand what you're feeling, and that will care about you, or care about the integrity of the job that they have enough to try and figure out what's wrong with you and help you in any way that they can. If I would have given up at the plethora of people who dismissed me, I would not be here today. And I know that there were plenty of people who probably slipped through the cracks and are not here today because of the pitfalls of those professionals. But I want you to know that if you're going through this, or anybody who is, there is recovery. And like I said, it's something that you will have to work on for the rest of your life, but it gets easier. I still, like I said, struggle to this day with a lot of things. If I'm being honest, every single day that I wake up, I struggle. But it's not to the magnitude that I did. And because I've gotten out of such a rough place, I know that there's always room for me to get better. I know that the potential for me to get better is endless. It's boundless. Even on my rough days, I can acknowledge that from a logical standpoint. Obviously, mental illness is not logical. And so I sort of have like fights in my head, my logical side and like the side that is messed up, they argue a lot, but at the end of the day, I know that if I could get myself out of what I was in before, certainly I can continue to improve. And if you are going through similar things that I went through, or any thing you suspect as a mental health struggle, and you aren't getting help, I I promise you there's help out there for you. And I promise you there are people that want to see you get better. And if there's nobody else, there's me, right? My inbox is always open. And if I can help anybody with anything, if I could provide a little bit more insight, I want to be there to help, because I never want anybody to be in the situation I was in. And unfortunately, I know that there are probably thousands of people going through that same thing right now. But they are not alone. You are not alone. And a lot of us face battles that we never speak about. But I feel like my due diligence is to be vulnerable and share what I've gone through in hopes that somebody can understand that there is hope to sort of get out of whatever you're dealing with. So I just want to kind of leave us with that, because I know this episode is really long. Again, even when you can't see a way out, you just keep going. It's one step at a time. And I say that to my classes, my cycling classes all the time, one pedal stroke at a time. Even if one day we're on the bike and I cue a speed push and you only get 2 RPM above your base, the next time it'll be 3 and then 4 and then 5. And then suddenly you will be at an RPM that you didn't think you could reach at whatever gear we're at. Suddenly you will be somewhere that you didn't think was possible, somewhere you couldn't visualize. You just got to keep moving, one foot in front of the other. And those little strides, those little improvements, they add up to be big improvements. And you deserve to live a life that is happy. You deserve to live a life free of mental illness. You deserve to live a fulfilling life, and we can all live that. There's hope for all of us. So that's just what I want to leave you with. Let me know in the comments or in my DMs what you thought of this episode. I'm open to suggestions for following episodes and questions you might have. At this point, I'm an open book, and I'm always open to be a vent session for anybody. So I'm thankful that you all tuned in to this episode. I hope that I could provide something valuable to you. And I'll see you all next time. Bye.